well, as a writer, director, producer, I think, I look at cast, because the cast on a low budget movie, it so defines the trajectory of that movie. Just the cast, who you can get in that movie, really defines what that movie is. Sure. So my name is Ashley Scott Meyers. I'm an American, living here in Los Angeles. I initially started out, and I'm sort of, I would say, very typical of the American screenwriter. I grew up in Annapolis, Maryland. My dad worked for the federal government. My mom was a school teacher. So I had no background or sort of experience in the arts. It was just, me and my brother, we just love movies. We watched we got HBO, and we were watching the movies. We'd go to the movie theaters. We'd go to, back then it was Blockbuster, and get videos. We just love movies. And so I just always wanted to be involved in that. And as I got later into my high school years, I just started to think about, well, how can I actually make this happen? I went to college. I ended up being an accounting major for a whole bunch of reasons that have nothing to do with screenwriting. But eventually I realized I did want to do something more creative, more in the arts. And once I got done college, I moved out to Los Angeles. Me and a buddy I met in college, Nathan Ives, who actually sold my first real script sale, was a script I co-wrote with my buddy Nathan Ives. So, we were just two guys. We bought a Ford pickup truck for $550 US. It was a 1958 Ford pickup truck. My buddy Nathan's a little more mechanical than me, so he kind of, fixed it up a little bit. We threw all our stuff in there and just drove across the country. We landed here in Los Angeles. We didn't know anybody, just found an apartment and just, started getting jobs and starting to network and meet people. That was in the mid 90s. So now we're, 25 years later, I'm still here.
Yeah, what a journey! Because how do you remember the trigger when you realized that this is it? I want to do this for all my life.
Well, okay, so that's a little bit overstating it. I want to do this for all my life. I tend to bounce around a little bit, get a little bored with stuff. So I can't honestly say this at this point in my life, that this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. But there was some moments that I can definitely look to, and I'll share those with you. So me, and again, my buddy Nate, we were actually taking a class in college called the Economics of India. It was like an elective class. It was a small class. They didn't have a real classroom for it. So they put it in the library, in like an empty room in the library. So we would go over there and it would be locked if I got there early. So I was like the first one there. It was locked. And across the hallway literally was the poetry reading room. So I just wandered in there, and there was a book there called Writer's Digest, Writer's Markets. And again, this is in the mid 90s. So things have definitely changed since then, but they had a whole chapter on screenwriting, basically how you can submit your screenplay. And that for me was the moment where I went from just being a guy that wanted to write scripts or had this sort of vision, I want to be a filmmaker or whatever, to saying, okay, this is an actual path to get something done and get something produced. So I started writing to some of those people that I found in Writer's Market. I didn't get any real traction or anything. I didn't even get anybody interested in my work, but one guy was nice enough to pick up the phone and call me. Again, this was before email was really ubiquitous. So he literally called me and he said, listen, don't send out any more scripts like that. Those are just way too amateurs. They're not formatted properly. And he gave me some real tips on kind of how to get started. And really the main tip, which I pass on to anybody listening to this, is he told me to go get Sid Field's book called Screenplay. And it was an excellent primer to just kind of understand how screenplays worked, kind of just as just as sort of a template, looking at it, and just as an 18, 19, 20-year-old kid that loved movies, but had never analyzed movies. It was a great sort of first step to sort of figure, okay, there is some format going on. There is some sort of things you need to understand behind the scenes as you're writing a screenplay. So that was really what got me started, was that initial phone call. I think my memory's a little hazy, but I think I sent out 2 letters. One of them was this phone call, the guy nice enough to say, hey, don't keep sending out this garbage. The other one, back then you would put a self-addressed stamped postcard in the envelope as your pitch. Hey, if you want to read the script, let me know on this self-addressed stamped postcard. And someone wrote back, thank you for that undated, untitled manuscript. No thanks. So they were, again, they were being snarky with me, but they were also letting me know that my submission was completely unprofessional and needed a lot of work. So then when this guy called me, I kind of realized, okay, I need to kind of figure this out a little bit more. But that was the moment for me. And that's why I've always been about selling your screenplay. How do you get something optioned and sell? I'm a big proponent. You mentioned short films. I'm a big proponent of short films because I think that's an easy way for screenwriters to even just a minute or 2 minute or 3 minutes short. It's just something you can write, you can shoot it on your iPhone and you can edit it and you can start to just feel some of what that is like, writing something and seeing it actually get produced. So to me, that was the start of everything, was having some sort of an understanding of, is there a path that to get this produced? I had never written anything up to that point, but once I got these two basically negative responses back, there was at least somebody on the other end. It wasn't just going into a black hole. And so I just started writing scripts. I went and I got Sid Field's screenplay, which really gave you, back then, before the internet was really ubiquitous, it gave you some real instruction on how to format a script. So I started to format scripts properly. I understood structure a little more. You start to kind of become a little more professional. And then I kept just hacking away and just kept sending out scripts until eventually I optioned and sold some.
Yeah, that's no, because you told me that before the internet era, there were different ways to, I don't know, to connect with people, with film professionals, and you told the letter, the postcard or something, and phone call. The phone call. Now it's the emails.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Definitely a different time. So
yeah. Now, I'm a big proponent of cold calling. Picking up the phone and calling can still work. It's still probably the most effective way of networking and connecting with people, but it's very, very difficult. It's emotionally draining. People are hanging up on you, telling you to screw off or whatever. So it's emotionally draining and you can feel awkward because you're kind of putting people in an awkward situation. But cold calling still works. So if anybody really has the sales skills to pick up and start cold calling, that's a great way. Get a list of production companies and just start calling them and trying networking that way. But yes, emails can work too. They're a lot less sort of in your face. So you can do a lot more. You can send out hundreds, if not thousands of emails pretty easily. But don't, cold calling is definitely still viable.
Yeah, it is. It is. Unless you run into the assistant or something.
The assistant are the people, though. That's exactly who you want to get to know, is the assistant, because the assistant today is the producer tomorrow. All those people are going to be working. And you're right, the producer is not that interested in getting to know an up and coming writer, but those assistants, they're going to be a little nicer. And those assistants, ultimately, they want to be producers too. So if they can sort of hip pocket a up and coming screenwriter, if they can discover a screenwriter, there's some real incentive for them. The established manager or agent or producer, there's not a lot of, advantages for him to discover new talent because he's already got access to the top talent. Like, what does he need to spend a bunch of time, cultivating 10 or 20 writers, hoping one of them is going to turn out to be a great writer, when the experienced producer can just go get one of those writers that has already made it to that next level. So don't poo-poo the assistants. If you're talking to the assistant, that's a totally good connection to make. And the other thing is, those assistants, if they read your script and they like your script, of course, they have the ear of that more experienced producer. So that's a good way to sort of start out with networking and building a network, is those assistants, the assistant to the assistant, and just start getting to know some of those people. Who are those people? Those people bounce around. They move from company to company. So, those people will know a lot of people. And if you can get to know them too, in a real way, real meaningful way, they can definitely be advantageous and potentially help your career.
Yeah, I never thought about this in that way, because they won't stay in that position for forever, So so it's a great way to network with them. Yeah, definitely. I would like to ask you something else. Have you been to the film school?
So I have not exactly been to film school, I wouldn't say. I was an accounting major, as I mentioned, in a small liberal arts school in the middle of North Carolina, so nothing to do with film. I took one screenwriting course in college, but again, was an accounting major. And then when I moved out here, one of the first people I met, I was working at a tennis club, and he was enrolled. It was just, we were the receptionist at this tennis club, and I got to know him. And I had just graduated college. He was enrolled in a master's program up at Cal State University, Northridge, and they had a master's degree program with a screenwriting emphasis. It was mass communications, I think was what the actual degree was, but it had an emphasis in screenwriting. So I ended up getting that. So I have an MA, Master's of Arts, in communications with a screenwriting emphasis. I'm not super high on film school or education. I mean, I think there were definitely some advantages. Depending on where you live or your current situation, CSUN out here in California, the entire CSUN education, getting this master's degree, I think it only cost me $3,000 or $4,000, which is not a lot of money by American college standards. So it didn't cost me much, and I did meet some people, and I did, get something out of it at that level. I sometimes cringe when I hear people say that they might have $50,000 or $60,000 or $80,000 in student loans to get a film degree. I think that there is, you might want to think that through. I don't know that these universities are really providing that much value for what they're actually giving you. But again, a lot of these things, no matter what you do in life, a lot of these things are how much effort you put into it. So, if you go to USC Film School, you're going to spend a lot of money. But if you go into it with the right attitude and energy and passion, I think you can really get a lot out of it too. So it really just depends on the different people. But to answer your question, yeah, I did get this master's degree in communications with a screenwriting emphasis. And I would say the amount of money I spent, and the time I spent, it was definitely worth it. But again, I didn't spend a lot of money.
Yeah, it depends your goal in this film school. So it depends because you can end up in I don't know, just making the wedding videos, which is great as well because you can make people happy for their weddings, and you can make some commercials, only commercials, or I don't know, for the corporation videos as well. So it depends which way you can end up. So you can learn definitely something. But it's going to lose a lot of money, of course, here. Definitely.
Yeah. So that's the trade-off.
Yeah. I would like to ask you about your last project. What is it about, and how did you get inspired? Is it a feature or?
Sure, it's a feature. No, it's a feature film. So yeah, I just completed, and we're doing the film festivals right now. As we sit here in August 2021, we're doing film festivals. We're going to probably sign with a distributor here in the next couple of weeks. So then the film will hopefully get out on iTunes and Amazon and everywhere. The movie is called The Rideshare Killer. It stars Tuesday Knight, and she is the CEO of a new ride-sharing app, kind of like an Uber or a Lyft, and a serial killer starts using this app to lure victims into his car and killing them. We got a great cast, but it's a horror thriller. I was sort of inspired by some of the Italian giallo films, those great sort of late 60s, early 70s sort of slasher films. That's sort of what this is. I tried to give a sort of a modern twist, obviously with the ride-sharing app, a little technology twist, but it's a feature-length horror. We made it super low budget, sub $100,000. But as a screenwriter, it was a great, process, seeing my vision fulfilled, writing the script and sort of producing it, directing it, getting it over the finish line. So again, just creatively, it's been very, very fulfilling. And I really recommend it to anybody, even if you don't want to be, if you're a writer and you want to be, even if you want to be a writer, but not necessarily a filmmaker, director, producer, I still encourage writers to, produce a short, and just even for no money, because a lot of things happen that are sort of just practical considerations. They're nothing to do with, the director's, doesn't see the vision, or the producer doesn't know what he's doing. Some of these things are just practical considerations, and that's what producing really helps you. So I encourage all writers to get out there and produce some stuff. But it's been a great experience for me, just producing this feature film.
Sorry, no. And how did you prepare for this film, to make this feature film? Because you get inspired from different genres.
Well, I mean, And you can tell all of your answers, all of my answers sort of have this practical consideration. So everything I sort of ultimately run through this filter of, is this actually going to work? Is this like something that could potentially make its money back? Could this actually be a viable product in the marketplace? So at the very final piece to all of this, I always really ask myself that question. So I've been in the business now, as I mentioned, I got here in the mid-90s, so I know a good number of people. I know a lot of other filmmakers, so I know a good bit about how these independent films just work as sort of a business model. So one of the ways I did get inspired was looking around at some of the other films that seem to be working in this low-budget space. I did talk to some other producers, some distributors, to get their thoughts on the project, sort of before I even wrote this one. But to be honest with you, if you want to hear how this one actually came about, I did a movie called The Pinch about 3 or 4 years ago, and one of the actors in that film was a guy I met through that film named Braxton Honeycutt. And he's also a producer and an actor. And we just started thinking about, well, what could we work on as a project next? He owned LA Grip at the time, so he had a lot of production experience and stuff. So we started just kicking around ideas. We went to AFM. We live in LA, or he used to live in LA. I'm still in LA. We went down to American Film Market, and we set up a bunch of meetings because we had just finished my movie, The Pinch. So we set up a bunch of meetings basically saying, okay, we have our movie. Do you want to distribute it? So we set up, a handful of meetings. And in those meetings, we would ask them, well, what is selling? What could actually be a movie that you could sell easily? And so this was sort of, we listened to what they were saying. And, there's some sort of sexy co-eds. It's a female cast. It's a female driven thriller. The woman is the protagonist. She's the one that ultimately solves the crime. So these were some of the things that we were hearing from these distributors as elements that could sell in the marketplace. So we're trying to sort of bring some of those things together. We came up with the idea. Braxton actually had the idea of, hey, what about something for around a ride sharing app? It's very timely. It gives it kind of a very modern spin. So it was really just spitballing. It was having those meetings, having sort of my experience in the business, and then really just spitballing with Braxton. We came up with this idea. It felt like something, again, that could work in the marketplace. I talked to some distributors, talked to some other producers, tried to vet it as much as possible. So, that's the film we made. And now we're doing the festivals, as I said, and now we're going to push it out into the marketplace, and we'll see if there's a market for it.
Hopefully you're going to find a release date and stuff like this,
Absolutely.
So it's a kind of a long journey, it's worth it. It's worth it. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about the camera did you use and the video editing?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And so as I've said on this interview, my background really for 25 years has been screenwriting. I've sold a bunch of scripts. I've been hired to write scripts and things. So I'm not overly technical on the sort of the filmmaking side. I don't actually have a lot of on-set experience. I mean, I did extra work when I first got to LA a little bit, and then I've been on the set. Of the scripts I've sold, only a handful of times have I even been on the set. I can only really think of maybe 2 or 3 times I've even been on set. So I don't have a lot of on-set experience. So my technical proficiency may not be, frankly, anywhere near what your listeners are up to, but I'll try and answer these as best I can. But that's sort of the caveat. I'm not the most technical one on the equipment. But anyways, so we shot this thing. We used a Blackmagic Ursula Mini, 4.6K. We had a nice lens package. We rented it through ShareGrid here in LA. We rented it from a guy, I can't remember his name. He was super nice. If anybody's really interested in getting the real details, I would totally recommend him as someone to rent this camera package. He had the camera, tripod, lenses, all of that stuff. He had the this wireless the wireless focus, all that sort of stuff that we needed. And as I said, he gave us a good deal. He was in LA. We did it around Christmas time, so he was kind of going away. So he gave us, an extra week or 2 for free. So we cut a good deal with him. But yeah, it was the Blackmagic Ursula Mini. 4.6K was the camera. We then once we got into post-production, I found an editor. It was not a guy I had ever worked with. Tony was my producing partner on this, and we found the editor through Tony. It was a filmmaker friend of Tony's had used this editor. So, we talked to him, we showed him the project, we looked at some of his stuff, and then we hired him. It was a fellow named Diego. I can't pronounce his last name, unfortunately, but again, I would totally recommend him. He was an excellent editor, and he's in LA here. So I got to meet with him a little bit. It was during COVID, but he just uses Adobe Premiere. I think, don't even quote me on that. I'm pretty sure he's on Adobe Premiere. And again, he's in LA. I think he really makes his living editing a lot of web stuff. He edits together a lot of these web videos and YouTube videos and that kind of stuff. He's always very busy doing that sort of editing work. So I think from his standpoint, he enjoyed working on sort of a narrative feature film kind of thing. So you got to find those guys that are good editors, but they want a chance to do something a little bigger than maybe they're used to working on. But again, I had an excellent experience with him and highly recommend Diego if anybody's looking for a short or a feature editor.
Yeah, all right, yeah, good. Can you tell me more about the lights on set and how, can you tell me more about the music as well?
Sure.
And the sound in general?
Yeah.
How do you think about that?
Yeah. So I'll start out sort of with some of the basics of production. So as I said, we rented our camera package through ShareGrid, but we got our lights and camera stuff through LA Grip. Now, again, if you remember, LA Grip was Braxton's company, and I got lights and basically I got a whole grip package, lighting, electric package from LA Grip. I've done co-productions with them. So we piggyback onto their insurance, and Braxton ended up selling LA Grip to a fellow named AJ. And so AJ came on as a producer on this project as well. But we basically used LA Grip's, one of their grip trucks. A 1 ton or 2 ton grip truck. I'm honestly not even sure what it was, but it was one of LA Grip's grip trucks. They had, it's not the newest, latest, most state of the art type stuff. I mean, they're renting this stuff out for commercial shoots all the time. So it's, a few years old. It's a little, rough around the edges here and there, but, overall it's good quality, beefy equipment. And, so we were able to totally light our set with a, whatever, 1.5 or 2 ton grip truck from LA Grip. As far as locations go, this is the one thing I'll say about LA. Locations, see, it's easy to find like talent, actors. It's easy to find crew here in LA because they all live here and they all want to work. So those things are usually very easy, but locations are not as easy because people are not as enthusiastic about, like, if you're outside of LA, people, and you go into a restaurant in Nebraska, they might just think it's cool that you're going to shoot a movie in their restaurant and give them a little publicity. That's not how it goes in LA. They hear you want to shoot a movie and they want to know how much money they're making. So, and you have CBS and, NBC and Netflix, pulling up in front of these restaurants. Hey, we'll give you $5,000 or $10,000 a day to shoot here. So the expectations of people that have shops and coffee shops and gyms and hotels and apartments, the expectations for how much you're going to pay in LA for a location are quite a bit higher than typically what you can afford on a low budget salary, but you can make it up with getting really experienced cast and crew. So most of the locations for Rideshare Killer, they were locations that I could get for free. Again, I mentioned LA Grip. We did a co-production. Another thing that we were able to use, since we're doing a co-production, they have a bunch of sets. So we used their back alley. They have like some office sets. We used their offices and we used the exterior. So we were able to shoot there. We shot at one of our actors, Jeffrey Druce. We shot a lot of it at his house. He had a very nice house. So the main location, I think we were there 9 or 10 days of our 17-day shoot schedule. 9 or 10 days were just at Jeffrey's house. That's where the sort of the headquarters for this ride sharing app is. And a lot of the action takes place there. We shot here in this house that you can see in the background. This is actually my office, my parents' house. This is my parents' house, and we actually have an office here. We shot at this house. We shot at my house. I live on the other side of the park from my office. You can see a scene in that We shot at my house. Tony's the other producer. He lives in the neighborhood as well. We shot a big party scene at his house. So we just try and utilize as much of the things we can use. For the score, you mentioned music. So again, in LA, I got a good sound design and a mixer. So I had a guy basically mix all the sound at the end. He did sound design, dialogue editing, and mixing at the end. I had a local guy do color correction. Again, he just got the film from Diego, our editor. He did all the color correction, and he was a guy I met here in LA. And then we had a woman named Amy. She's actually a composer, a musician in the UK. That was through Tony, again, my producing partner. Somehow he knew someone who knew her or something, and so he got us in touch with her. And again, she's a music teacher and teaches music. She does scoring. She had done a bunch of shorts and stuff, but really talented, very nice. She's super nice too, but very talented musician. And just came on board. She wasn't anybody we had ever worked with before, but we interviewed her and a bunch of other composers. We really liked her, and she just had a good attitude. The samples that we heard, we really were impressed with, and so we just worked with her remotely. We've never actually met her. Everything was done just through Zoom calls and listening to her stuff, and she would send us some little clips of the music put to the movie. We would do notes, send it back. And that's really how the whole thing went with color correction. And even with Diego, the editor, I've only met Diego a handful of times. And because of COVID, we did pretty much everything remote. Every now and then I would have to go to Diego and drop off some hard drives or pick some hard drives up. But I think I've only met him 3 times in person, and that was like out on the sidewalk as he hands me the hard drive. So everything there, again, because of COVID, was done remotely. And it was actually a good process. He would do a cut of the film. He would send it to me and Tony. We would watch it a few times. Me and Tony would talk about it, again, all through phone or Zoom or whatever. We would send notes back to Diego. Diego would do the corrections notes, send us a new draft. I think we did maybe 3 or 4, maybe 5 passes of the film, just bouncing it back and forth over the course of maybe 3 months or something, 4 months. And then again, Amy started to do the same thing, color correction, sound design, all that. Once we had locked picture with Diego, we sent it out to the other folks, and, just worked like that. Really, again, with COVID, it was all very remote, but it also makes it very much, it sort of fits into my schedule. So to be honest with you, my next feature film, I'll probably do in a very similar manner, even if COVID is not, with us.
Yeah. And just realize that when you make a film, you need to get surrounded with resourceful people, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's to be able to do a different kind of stuff in the same time, mm-hmm. or one at a time. Or it's I think definitely it's definitely a purpose to do different stuff if you want to survive. So
yeah, for sure.
Be able to continue. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me your best experience on set, and do you have some anecdotes maybe?
Yeah, I'll say this. My best experience on set probably was the first real movie I sold. It was a movie called Ditch Dogs, and those guys they invited us on set twice. We went to 2 different scenes. One of them was actually a strip club scene that me and my buddy Nate had written. So, they had lots of pretty girls and we were extras in the scene. So it was just fun to be on there. And then the next scene was a beach wedding scene. So again, it was like a really fun atmosphere. So, I mean, those moments were just really cool. Being on set, seeing the thing come together. We were super young. We were still in our 20s. We had only been in LA for a few years. So it was just a really great feeling to kind of just accomplish something and just sort of be a part of something bigger than yourself. And on that set, you want a little anecdote. On that set, Sean Astin, who has gone on to do some, he was one of the guys in Stranger Things season 2. He was Winona Ryder's boyfriend. He was in Lord of the Rings. He went on to have a good career. He had done a bunch of things up to that point. He had done Encino Man, was kind of his claim to fame prior to that. He hadn't done Lord of the Rings yet, but he was a super nice, really passionate, smart guy. And me and Nate had dinner with him a couple of times in sort of the pre-production process. And just seeing, because he's sort of the opposite in terms of, I mean, his dad and mom were both famous, successful actors. So he's someone that was sort of born into it. And I know there's always this thing of, oh, nepotism and this. And one of the realizations having breakfast and dinner with him and really discussing the material was, I mean, obviously nepotism exists and things, but he was really smart, really shrewd, and incredibly hardworking. Like even if I had met him and not known who his parents were, he was a guy that was really working hard, really trying to understand the script, understand the material, and do just a great job. And you start to get to the higher ends of this, and you see how much that is really the biggest component. Is you have to be hardworking, persistent, and really passionate. And it doesn't really matter who your parents are. If you don't have that passion and persistence, there's really a limit to how far you're ever going to succeed in this business, because ultimately you do have to stand on your own two feet. And so that's kind of maybe a story I would like to share with people is we can all feel like, oh, somebody else has more advantages to us or a better situation or got a leg up that we didn't have. But, there's also a whole bunch of people that didn't get the leg up that we've had. There's people that are way below. And I get these emails from people from the third world countries. And a lot of times I can tell they have the passion, but they don't have the opportunities. And, we really need to be mindful of what kind of opportunities we have, and don't let someone else's success ever drag you down and make you feel like, oh, he's only successful because he had this or he had that. Some things it's really the passion and the persistence and the love of what we're doing that's going to get us through.
Yeah, definitely. It's a kind of a life lesson or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
In a way, of course. So you always wanted to do this job, but can you make a living from your passion?
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy. It's not an easy thing to do. And I think, you do. I mean, at this point, I'm like totally independent. I'm just out there doing my own thing. I'm not, I don't even have an agent manager at this point. I'm not affiliated with a studio or Netflix. I don't have some sort of a deal. So the movies I'm making, I'm just putting out there into the world. I'm trying to sell some scripts. I mean, I've been out here now for 20, 25 years. Have I really ever made a great living as a screenwriter? Probably not. It depends on sort of what your definition of a great living is, but probably not. But I have my own sellingyourscreenplay.com, my podcast. I run a screenplay contest over there. I try and help other filmmakers. I do make money from selling your screenplay. So I do always think that there's ways of, if you're smart, you got to just always be trying to figure out what you have, how you can add value to this, filmmaking, ecosystem that exists. How can you participate and give value to other people that they might be willing to pay? So I do think that there are ways of making money at this, totally independently. And I'm trying to get there with these films. Obviously, it'd be nice if these films made a lot more money, or made some money, but that's to me, I put that really secondary. I mean, I am making a living being totally independent. Again, I have some other websites. I have Selling Your Screenplay, and I do make some money as a screenwriter as well. So I think you just have to kind of figure out, what do you want out of your life? What do you want from how do you want to spend your time on the planet Earth? And figure out how you can use your talents and your experiences to try and find some way that you can make a living doing something that you are passionate about. I think, I do think I can honestly say, as someone who's sold a bunch of scripts, I don't get a lot more joy out of that than I do out of selling your screenplay. I enjoy doing my own podcast. I enjoy running my own blog. It's a creative process too. I put together a screenwriting contest. And in fact, we got actually the first winning script from last year. I was able to help facilitate that script getting produced. So I get joy out of that. I feel fulfilled. I feel like I am actually creating value in this space and also making some money. So to me, all of it is tied together. It's not, am I going to make $1 million off my next movie? No, I'm not. My next movie, if I can even break even, I'll frankly feel like I'm doing pretty well. But that also, I get better as a filmmaker. I also have something to come on podcasts like this and talk about. I get to promote selling your screenplay. So it's all part of this bigger package that is me and my brand. The films are just one piece that you can kind of come in on. And I'm trying to kind of show people how this stuff is made and be kind of an educator. And, maybe that can be my shtick. Maybe some other people can come and learn from that. Again, just trying to give more value to other people. Hopefully some of that value will come back to me in terms of people liking what I have to say, liking some of my products. I have a script analysis service. So if any of your members are looking for an analysis on one of their screenplays, they can go to sellingyourscreenplay.com and they can buy it. And yes, I'll make some money. I'm not going to be the one that's actually doing the reading. I have a staff of, quality readers that do that. But yeah, that's part of the whole sort of cycle that is my brand and my website. And these movies are definitely a piece of that. So I think people sometimes look at this in too much of a sort of a microcosm, was like, can I make a full-time living just making movies? And maybe you can. I hope you can. That would be awesome. But that's not necessarily the be all end all. Certainly not for me. I met this guy once. I don't even know if he's still alive. He was very old then. He probably is. It was a guy named Robert Young. And I optioned a script to a guy named Pierre Oppenheimer, and he then got this guy Robert Young to come on as the director. And so we were having these development meetings, and again, he was old. This was over 20 years ago, and he was old then. Maybe it was about 20 years ago. But he was old then. But he had done a bunch of things. One of his movies had even gotten, it was called Dominic and Eugene, and it had even gotten some Academy Award nominations, maybe for Best Actor or something. So it was a good quality movie, and he had a whole list of movies like that he had done. And I remember as we were going through, he didn't like my script at all. So it never worked out. He just didn't like my script, but whatever. But throughout the process, we're getting to know each other. And at the end, one of the end of these days, we're sitting there having these things and we're talking over a meal or something. He said, it's good in this business to have a sideline. And my recollection is a little bit off, but I think he owned a few coffee shops back then. Again, this is like, let's say 2000, around the year 2000. I think he owned a bunch of coffee shops or he had some sort of another business. Again, don't quote me on that exactly, but that was his message to me was it's good to have a sideline. And I do think that anybody in the entertainment industry that wants to be sane and rational, it's an up and down business. Even the most successful people have years where they do nothing. And so how are you going to fill your time if you have nothing to do for a year? There's actors that might go 2, 3, 4 years without doing anything. What are you actually doing during those times? You're just sitting on your computer waiting for the phone to ring? No, you're doing stuff. And you have to find a life outside of this. Maybe you're working on shorts to keep your directing skills sharp, your writing skills sharp, but you have to always be doing something, even if you're not getting paid boatloads of money to do it. Again, it goes back to that passion and stuff. The passion, the persistence, just really enjoy the process so that it doesn't feel like work. You're not worried about, well, how much am I getting paid on this project? If you love doing it, who cares how much you're getting paid? You're doing something you like to do. If you're making any money, you're doing pretty well. So I don't know. That's kind of more of my angle on it.
No, you're right, because you talk about the sideline. I think you need, I would say, branch out at some point, because your one activity is not enough. Just acting or just directing, filmmaking, it's not enough. I think you need to branch out. This guy, you told me, he's got a couple of coffee shops or stuff like this. So it was like thinking for the next step.
Exactly. And he had some income. It also, anybody that wants to have like a real life, you need to have some baseline steady income, money that you can count on so you can budget and live in a house that you can afford, live in an apartment that you can afford, drive a car that you can afford. Like you need some steady, and you can't just make, $300,000 one year and not make any money for 8 years. Like that's not going to work either. You need to have some ability to just make some money money on a consistent basis, have some sort of steady income or a career. And again, if it's coffee shops, if it's running some sort of a business, again, I mentioned my buddy Braxton who owned LA Grip. He was a working actor. Go look him up on IMDb. He's got like 150 acting credits. He was making some money as a working actor, but he was also making a living doing LA Grip, having this sideline, and it allowed him really to get acting gigs. It allowed him to meet filmmakers like myself. That's how I met him. I was looking at, I needed some of his sets. I needed some of his electric and grip equipment. We got to know each other. I cast him in my movie. We became, associates, friends. We still work together, still are in touch. So that's how these things work. Being able to support yourself and just roll with the dice. I had another friend, he was a special effects guy, and I developed some scripts with him. And I remember one of the metaphors he used to use was this idea of playing craps. It's like if you sit there at the craps table and you just keep rolling the dice, eventually your number will come up. But if you can only sit there and roll the dice 3 times, if you only have enough money to get through 3 rolls of the dice, your number may not come up. But if you can sit there for days on end, weeks on end, and potentially years on end and just keep rolling those dice, your number will eventually come up.
Yeah, just keep moving basically.
Yeah.
Just keep moving and doing some stuff. Yeah, that's the basics, I think. Yeah, to be able to continue. Tell me, did you use the crowdfunding or the fundraising maybe?
Correct. Yeah, I have done Kickstarters for both my films. The films that I've written, directed, and produced, I've done 2 Kickstarters on those. The Pinch, I did one and raised about $10,000, $12,000, and on Rideshare Killer, we came close to I think $20,000. So correct, we did crowdsourcing for those. Again, I like Kickstarter as a model, because I kind of feel like, again, as someone who has a podcast and an audience of people that kind of knows me and knows my work, I feel like the Kickstarter is a way of pre-selling the movie, is I can tell people this is what I'm doing and people can sign up or not sign up. But you can start to gauge how much interest there is in this particular project. So I'm very bullish on Kickstarter, on crowdsourcing and stuff. And I think as time goes on, we will see more and more studios and bigger fish start to get in on some of this, because again, it's a good way to tell if there's any demand for some of these projects. And there's a lot of like movies out there that maybe there could be a sequel for that movie, but only if some of it's crowdfunded. There's not quite enough interest for a full-blown sequel. So I think there's a lot of opportunities for crowdfunding, crowdsourcing, and Kickstarter going forward. Because again, it's a way of taking your audience and saying, hey guys, what about this idea for a movie? Is anybody interested? And then you can just see who signs up and who doesn't.
Yeah, definitely. You can grow an audience, from your crowdfunding page. Definitely a good thing for the future.
Yeah.
Did you experience some film festivals?
Yeah, so we're going through the film festivals right now with Rideshare Killer, and I don't want to sound like a bitter screenwriter, and I don't know how much of it's because of COVID, but the festivals have not been great. I mean, we've even gotten into a bunch of them, and they've just been so disorganized. So I don't have a lot of great experiences at festivals, to be honest with you. As I said, even the festivals we've gotten into with the Rideshare Killer have really been kind of disappointing, but I don't know how much COVID has been playing a part in that. With my film, The Pinch, 3 or 4 years ago, I only got into 2 festivals, and one of them I didn't go to. One of them I went to and had a good time. So I don't know. I'd say for me, the jury is still out with the festivals. I haven't found them to be incredibly helpful.
Yeah, it depends. Of course, yeah, it's very difficult sometimes. But they make a choice. The juries.
Yeah.
So that's I will say that's the game. That's the rule of the game. So it's. But hopefully they always give you some feedbacks or stuff like this. Some. When you yeah, exactly. Hopefully, but honestly, as I said, even the festivals we were accepted to, we were accepted. 3 of them, I don't even know if we were ever screened. Like, we never heard back from the film festivals when we were being screened. If we were screened, we sent them the screener link. It kind of looks like it was downloaded a few times, but they never got back to us
3 of the festivals we got into. So, again, I know COVID has really wrecked a lot of these things. So I think for me, it's going to be more about, I'll give the festivals another chance on my next film, and hopefully report back.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Great. I would like to talk to you about the cinema in general and technology, because technology nowadays, somebody can buy a camera, can buy video editing, and can start make a film. Do you think this is the future of cinema, or?
No, I don't think that's the future of cinema. I mean, I think it's the future of TikTok. I think it's the future of YouTube. I think there's a lot of areas where these shorts can be shown. But I'm skeptical. I remember back in the early 2000s, maybe even the late 90s. And again, don't quote me on this, but this was like Spielberg. It was something I read. It was like an interview I read from Spielberg, and sort of, it was right as the digital revolution was sort of taking off in the late 90s. And it was like, oh, we're going to get all these filmmakers from all these different areas of the world, and they're all going to be able to create their stuff and things. And, we don't really see that. And I think what gets lost in all of this is that to make a movie like these Marvel superhero movies, there is an incredible amount of just plain craft, experience and craft. And just, that's really what, it's not just pure storytelling or this. The people that are making those movies are highly skilled, and you have to get that experience. You can't just create a Marvel movie because you're super talented. You have to create a Marvel movie because you're super talented and you have 20 years experience working on these high-end movies. So I think that these other platforms will be great. My kids have started to get into TikTok. I actually created a TikTok channel. I think TikTok is a great platform for writers or filmmakers, because even my young daughters, preteen daughters, are able to post a video and get feedback and, get likes or not likes. And they're able to see, well, which of my videos are getting the most likes, and start to sort of interact with an audience and start to train yourself for what people actually like, and why this video got, 1,000 views and this video only got 30 views, and this one got 100 likes and this one only got 3 likes. So I think the shorts and the phones, I think all that stuff on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok, I think that's where we'll see it. And I think we do see some of those people coming up and eventually getting into feature films. But again, those people are still going to have to get all that experience. I mean, the greatest TikToker in the world has absolutely no idea how to direct or produce $100 million Marvel movie. They're not even in this. They're really barely even the same. They're not even the same things. Let's be honest. So I still think that we need to really appreciate this idea of apprenticeship and experience and working your way up. I don't think it's all just about, hey man, I'm 22 and I'm super talented. Here's my iPhone, where's my 6-picture deal? I think there's still going to be some experience before you get that 2 or 3 or that 2 or 3 picture Netflix deal. You're going to have to do something, and you're going to have to eventually get in with this system and understand how feature films are made and get some experience actually making feature films in a real way, not just posting stuff on YouTube and TikTok. Again, I'm not disparaging that stuff. I think that's fantastic, and I think it's great, and I definitely think it's where you're going to start. But I think there's a big leap between TikTok and YouTube and actually doing feature films.
Yeah, definitely. It's another league, 2 different leagues. So it's different ways of thinking. So
yeah.
Results. Yeah.
It's a different skill set. I mean, a lot of the stuff, and this is what I like about TikTok. TikTok is really about the creative process. They've made it so easy to create something and upload it. That's the magic. And by limiting everything to, 15 seconds or a minute, you're really forcing people to do something cool in a very limited amount of time. And they've made it easy to do that. Making a feature film, it's not easy to do. There's some real there's some real logistical things that you have to work through, and you're not getting that experience on TikTok. You're not getting that experience on YouTube. You could make a feature film or a short film and go through that same process and put it on YouTube. But I think those platforms, they should be used how they're intended to be used, which is get stuff up cheaply and quickly and share it with the world, get feedback, build a community, build a following of people. I mean, if you can go and create a TikTok channel and get a bunch of following, you might be able to push those people into a Kickstarter or a crowdsourcing campaign. Hey, you guys like my TikToks? Yeah, well, I'm going to do this 15-minute short film and I need to raise $10,000. Hey, go over here. So I think all these things can lead to other things, but it's going to be, again, about getting that experience and taking those steps one step at a time.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we talked about cinema versus social media. Can you what do you think about the current cinema? Because the digital cameras came about 10 years ago or something, and it changes a lot of things. What do you think about, I don't know, maybe American cinema or
listen, yeah, and like there's been that recent dust up with Martin Scorsese and Christopher Nolan. They're kind of poo-pooing the digital, the Netflix, and saying, oh, we need this cinematic experience. And those guys are obviously at the top of the key in terms of, auteurs creating some sort of high art for mass media high art. So I definitely think that's a perspective worth considering. But I often, when I hear people like Martin Scorsese, it feels to me sometimes like, and I'm about to enter this age bracket myself, I have kids, it often feels to me like the parents, scolding the kids, and the parents, this is the way you really need to do it. And I do often think that, sometimes the older people just lose touch. And I know I'm about to lose touch. I'm getting older, my kids. And I see some of these videos on TikTok, and, there was this one guy I followed. I think he's an American dude. I'm not really sure, but he was making these cool videos sort of around exotic cars, and he would do the cool video, but then he would do the how-to video, and he would show he's doing, and he does these cool things with the phone. He's like, but I was watching these cool videos circling around this cool Ferrari, zooming in and out of it, and then he showed the video how to do it, and I watch him do this, and it's like, he is an artist. He's just a 21st century artist. He's learning how to use that phone, just like an artist learned how to use that canvas and paint. He's really learning how to use that phone in a really artistic way. So I think we will see some of that bleeding into feature films. We will see some of that craftsmanship, that it's going to be bottom up. It's not top down. Martin Scorsese's at the top. Art and these sorts of things, these are bottom up. These are not top down. The established artists from, I guess from he's been around for 50 years now. I don't look to those guys to tell us what's coming next. They can tell us, what they've done and what they've seen, but no, I think it's going to be a shift. I think there will be young people that figure this stuff out and find this stuff and use these mediums in new ways that, Martin Scorsese simply doesn't even understand. And frankly, I don't understand. I'm not poo-pooing Martin Scorsese because I'm only, a little younger than him. I'm about to enter that place myself, and I can see it with my kids. And my kids are uploading these videos. They're like these little Roblox videos. I don't even understand what the point of them are, but some of them get a bunch of likes, and I can see I'm like trying to tell my daughter, well, wait a minute, this is the fundamentals of storytelling, but it's like, no, she knows more about TikTok than me. I mean, it's ridiculous for me to try and lecture her about TikTok. So I do think we have to have a little bit of perspective. I do think, humans are inherently artistic and creative, so I'm not worried that, art is going to be lost. Maybe cinema art, as Martin Scorsese defines it, will be lost. And maybe that's a shame to people like him and me that appreciate that. But there'll be something new, that's just as creative and just as artistic that comes up to fill its place. Because these are not, it's not the medium. It's not the act of going to the theater. It's just, we are humans that have these desires to be creative and to have a shared experience and to laugh and to be scared with other, you know what I'm saying? Those are the things, and those are the same sorts of things that these other mediums can do.
Yeah, we're all excited to do it, to be creative and to share with people. So it's I think it's part of human factors or human fibers.
Exactly. It's an innate, it's a primal urge. It's part of our DNA to create, to share, to be a part of a community. These are just parts that's never going to go away. As long as there's humans, those will always be part of us. And that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing. So yeah, I mean, is Martin Scorsese's movies going to continue to play out as they've played out over the last 50 years? Probably not. But I mean, we'll be okay as a society.
If you have the opportunity to work with someone, who could it be?
You know, that's a good question.
Thank you.
as a writer, director, producer, I think, you know, I look at cast, because the cast on a low budget movie, it so defines the trajectory of that movie. Just the cast, who you can get in that movie, really defines what that movie is. So I spend a lot of time looking at, you know, actors, you know, the great actors really of my generation. You know, who are those people? Edward Norton, you know, Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, these guys that are really the thing. So I always think, oh, it'd be so great to do movies with those guys. You know, there's some lesser known people, you know, that I see starting to do some independent films, guys, you know, that Gen X, the guys that have gotten sort of out of their 20s, maybe out of their 30s, they're into their 40s now. They're starting to do some of these lower budget films. So I do keep an eye on some of them, some of those folks. I'd love to just work with some of those cast. But I don't know if there's anybody specifically that I think, wow, it's more of the project. I have some scripts. I think, oh, wow, this would be a great role. I was just looking up, I'm trying to put together a film noir script right now. And there's kind of this bad guy, and Gary Busey is someone, I know he lives locally here in Malibu. He's kind of someone that will do some of these low budget movies if the mood strikes him or whatever. So there's some stuff like that I look at, and you know, that's something maybe a little more realistic than, you know, Anthony Hopkins or something like that. I mean, who wouldn't want to work with some of these really, you know, top flight actors in the thing. So, you know, there's some people that say more sort of at my level that I'm thinking, maybe I could get them in my next movie.
Yeah, it depends the opportunities. So
yeah,
definitely. And I wanted to ask you, what do you wish in the short, mid, and long run?
Say that again.
Sorry. What do you wish in the short, mid, and long run?
Yeah, I mean, as I've said sort of throughout the interview, I mean, I really enjoy making these movies, these low budget movies. I'm the writer, director, producer, so they are my vision, for better, for worse. If you hate the movie, that's fine. You can blame me. But if you like the movie, you know, I take a lot of the credit because I'm the one putting these things together. So for me, that's part of my shtick. I want to just keep making my movies really at whatever budget level I can put them together at. So I would say that's both really short, medium, and long term. You know, and in the short term, I would like to start making more money from these, figure out a little more on the business end, get these movies so they're a little more profitable, and you know, I can spend a little more time and a little more energy on them. The more money they make, you know, I can devote more of my time to them. So I would say that's the short-term goal, is to get these things making a little more money, and long-term goal, I just want to keep making movies and keep running my websites.
Yeah, all right. It's hopefully you got step by step. You're gonna make it, step by step. Mm-hmm. What do you wish? No, sorry. Which tips can you give to someone who's gonna start?
Yeah, and I think hopefully I've kind of given sort of my point of view on all of this throughout this interview. But again, I hear from so many screenwriters where they send me an email and say, oh, I submitted my script to this company and that company, and they never got back to me. And, you know, that if you submit your script to just 2 places or 5 places or 10 places, that's just not enough to know if you're actually things. And so I just feel like a lot of people, they don't fully understand the effort that it's going to take. Even if you have the talent, even if you write a good script, or you're a good actor, or you have a lot of talent as a director. I just don't know the people. I think there's this sort of assumption that, oh, well, if I have the talent, I'll write a great script, somebody will recognize it, and then my career will be off and running. And even in the best of case scenario, that's not always realistic. I mean, I hope it's that easy for you, but I don't know very many people that have had that easy of a time at it. And there's going to be low points in your career. So you've got to build up this sort of knowledge of how to get things going and how to sell yourself and market yourself and make things happen for yourself. No matter who you are in this business, just be prepared for a long fight. Do some of the things. What I'm saying is that I've set myself up. Yeah, I sell scripts. I make money as a screenwriter. I make money as a filmmaker. But guess what? I also have sellingyourscreenplay.com where I'm making money. I've got a number of other sites where I'm making money. So I'm not in a position where I'm going to go. I can just sit here forever until I die because I've got sort of the baseline taken care of. And I can just keep making these movies. I can keep putting these movies together. I can keep doing exactly what I recommended. I can stay at that craps table, keep rolling the dice, keep making these movies. Hopefully they get a little bigger with every production. They get a little bigger, a little bit more advanced, a little bit better cast, a little bit more money. And, but again, I'm not in some sort of a position where the walls are closing in on me. I've got time on my side and I can just kind of keep making these movies as best as I can for whatever the budget is.
Yeah. I think tenacity is the key word, I think.
Yeah.
Just keep rolling the dice and that's keep on working. I think that's the expression, right? Keep on working.
Exactly.
Which movie or series did grab your attention lately?
Yeah, and I asked that question to my guests, and a lot of them are unprepared. They say, "Oh, I don't know." You know what I saw recently on Netflix? It's not a fictional thing. It was this show on Netflix called "How to Be a Tyrant," and it was a little bit tongue in cheek, but I found it fascinating to kind of do I won't even say a deep dive, but to do a dive into some of these different tyrants. Again, it's on Netflix. Anybody can check that out. It was a series. I think there was maybe 6 or 8 episodes. I watched a movie this weekend, and I'm trying to remember, Red Sky or something. Sky Blood Red or something. It was basically Die Hard on an airplane with vampires. It's on Netflix. It's a Netflix movie. Yeah, it's a Netflix movie. It was pretty entertaining, but I felt it got a little double mumbo jumbo-y just with so many just things, these vampires, these terrorists trying to take the plane. But it was it was a really contained, almost the entire movie took place on this plane. So once you had that set, you could do it pretty cheaply. And again, it's a kind of a mashup of the vampire genre mixed with the Die Hard genre. So very high concept. So another one definitely worth checking out. And again, they had no real name cast in it, so I'm sure they did that one pretty cheap. I think it was done outside of the U.S. I think it was actually dubbed. It was a movie. It was a Netflix movie, but not in the U.S. But I thought it was pretty entertaining.
Yeah, definitely, because the way you tell it, and it's kind of a mash, a mix.
Yeah, exactly, a mashup of genres. So. Oh yeah. So yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah. I mean, definitely anybody thinks I've said anything interesting or wants to learn more about me, definitely check out my site, sellingyourscreenplay.com. I do a weekly podcast. Typically who I interview there are filmmakers that have just completed a film, and they come on to promote the film, and we talk about writing the screenplay and then also how they got that film produced. So you can check that out. And also I have, as I said, a screenplay contest on there if you have a screenplay. My contest is devoted to low budget scripts, and I define that as a project that could be produced for less than $1 million US, so 6 figures or less. would be the total production budget. Obviously, I'm on Twitter, Ashley Meyers. I'm on Twitter and I'm on Instagram. I think I'm Ashley Meyers on Instagram too. But if you go to sellingyourscreenplay.com, you can see all my links there and follow along. Twitter, Instagram. I have a YouTube channel as well. I think that one's Selling Your Screenplay. But again, it's all linked from sellingyourscreenplay.com. Perfect. And definitely too, keep an eye out for my movie, The Rideshare Killer. It should be on Amazon Prime. Within the next 3, 4, 5 months, we'll have distribution worked out. We should be on iTunes and Amazon Prime. So yeah, definitely keep an eye out for that as well.